The name of the fallacy is appeal to authority. The definition of the fallacy is appealing to an authority who is not an authority.
And who gets to determine whether or not that's an authority?
We do.
We do. Who's
Yeah.
we?
Well, normally...
Because everybody, when they appeal to authority, will say, well, this is an authority.
Yes, what you do is you present the credentials and you demonstrate that the person, first of all, exists, and then you demonstrate that they are actually an expert in the field. And then after presenting their credentials, the individual gets to determine whether or not they're going to recognize that that person is authority. You can reject whatever authority you want.
Creation is proof of a creator. Every building has a builder. Every painting has a painter. The heavens declare the glory of God.
And every universe has a universer.
Yeah, every universe has a creator.
No, every universe has a universer. You don't get to call it a creation. You have to demonstrate that it's a creation.
You don't have to demonstrate anything. I don't have to demonstrate to you that a building has a builder. It's axiomatic.
You have to demonstrate that the building is a building and not just something that appears to be a building.
What are you talking about?
If there's a creek out behind my house and I go out after a couple weeks of not tending to it and it's blocked up by a bunch of sticks and mud, is that a beaver dam or is that the result of a natural clogging of sticks and flooding?
It's a result of natural clogging.
How do you know? How do you know it's not a beaver dam?
Okay, so let's go back to the building. The building is evidence of a builder. The painting is evidence of a painter. And it's impossible scientifically for nature to create itself because it would have had to be pre-existent to create itself before it created itself. And the other thought to you earlier on says the universe could be eternal. That violates the second law of thermodynamics.
Okay, no, it doesn't because, so Ray, first of all, second law of thermodynamics only applies to a closed system. So you should just stop with that. Stop pretending that you understand physics at all. I agree that existence, the universe as a whole, requires an explanation. I just don't agree that explanation is a who.
Okay.
So you're starting with a question that is flawed, a question that requires some justification. If you want to say who is responsible for the universe, then you first have to demonstrate that it's actually a who and not a what.
Well, I mean, you just have to go into your own, into nature and find out for yourself.
I've gone into nature. I didn't find any who.
Any what?
Who?
Is he under a rock? I mean, I've gone for hikes.
You know who, the guy who's playing first?
I mean, it's not. I'm not trying to be funny or sarcastic.
Okay.
It's a serious question I'm trying to pose to you.
Right, and yet you keep posing it the wrong way. You haven't. What makes you think it's a who?
Well, it's not man. So who else is it then?
Well, it's not man. So who else is there? How about what caused the universe?
So you believe in the Big Bang?
Yes.
So the Big Bang was just something. Who was behind the Big Bang?
Oh boy. Who was behind God?
God is the Alpha and the Omega. He's the perfect circle.
Oh, okay. So
is your argument.
I came to Christ. I was 12 years old through the work of the Holy Spirit in my life. I mean, you don't have to believe this, but let me just put it at least out there as I'm convinced that this is true. And I didn't have any of this data. I looked at it secondarily as like, what if I'm delusional? I want to find out. Like, I expected no evidence from the first century to confirm this stuff because it's 2,000 years ago. There's hardly any evidence to prove events from, the distant past. When I found this mountain of support, it blew me away. And I think it's a wonderful thing. I don't want to shake my fist at it because it's not something it's not, but I have both personally. I have the personal testimony. Yep, God made himself real to me, but also the support from history. And I think that those are worth talking about.
You know what you just described? You believed first and then examined the evidence and found it consistent. That is the exact backward way of sound epistemology, sound investigation, critical thinking, and skepticism. You should follow the evidence where it leads, not make sure that it's consistent with what you already accept.
Well, that's what you're doing when you say you won't accept a supernatural explanation.
No, it's not
consistent with what you already accept.
Do you not know the bio where I was saved at the age of 5 and was active in the church and believed all this? And then when I began to understand epistemology, that I could not evaluate the evidence beginning with belief and then making sure that it fit. Because once you believe there's a God who can do anything, everything fits. Instead, you have to follow the evidence where it leads. And if it turns out the evidence is insufficient to establish the thing you believe, then you have to examine why you believed it in the first place. And it turns out I have no good reason to believe that there's a God or that Jesus was divine.
So y'all don't believe in God, so y'all don't believe in anything.
No, that's not true.
No.
Well, God's everything, so if you don't believe in him, then you believe in nothing.
Oh, okay, so you're defining God as everything.
Well, God made everything. Like, how can you walk outside and look at the trees in the sky and be like, there's no God?
Okay, so I'm kind of confused because you've said God made everything, and then you've said God is everything, and now you want us to look at trees, and that's evidence of God.
Well, yeah, the Big Bang didn't make the trees. How did the trees get here?
Acorns, seeds.
Well, what about those, and what about before that and before that?
Right, and if you look at the genetic code for life on this planet, the evidence points to the fact that there is sometime way back in our history a common ancestor. That life is this divergent pattern, a self-replicating divergent pattern that is evolved over time through natural selection. That's where the evidence points.
Okay, well, so you don't see God in anything. You don't see God out in the world. Everything's designed for us, like the banana's designed for us. It fits in the hand. It fits in your mouth.
It fits in your butt. Do you think
Not
that's
in mine, maybe in yours.
Do you think that was the intended purpose? Do you realize that the bananas that you eat, the bananas that you're looking at, are actually cultivated plants created by humans that don't exist in the wild? They can't reproduce on their own. Do you realize that? God didn't make the bananas you eat. We did.
Whatever. Oh, so you can make a banana appear in your hand right this minute?
No, but I can make something that looks like a banana appear in my hand.
See, you're just atheist because y'all want to sin all the time.
That's it. You got it.
Did you read Matthew 5:27 and 28?
Sure, I've read the whole Bible several times.
Okay, do you know what it says there?
Is that the passage about adultery, where doesn't just have to be physical adultery? If you look at another man's wife with lust, you've committed adultery in your heart?
Exactly. It says, whosoever looketh on a woman to lust after her hath committed adultery with her already in his heart.
Sure.
And that's what you need to realize, that your desires are unclean in the eyes of God. All of us are. That's what brought me to Christ. When I realized I was burning with unlawful sexual desire, and that God, being holy, had seen my thought life, and I was in big trouble on Judgment Day and would justly end up in hell, that brought me to my senses. And that's what I'm hoping will happen to you today. You'll say, boy, if God is holy and perfect and he's seen my thought life, my sexual desires are unclean. All of us do. We drink iniquity like water. We're like moths to a flame when it comes to pornography. I mean, when did you last look at pornography?
Today?
Yeah. And so you're addicted to it like every male.
I'm not addicted to it.
Do you think that you sin? Do you think that you commit evil, immoral acts?
Do I think that I've done things which are wrong? Sure.
Okay. And what are you going to do about that? I mean, do you have any...
I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm not going to expect some divine intervention to blanket forgive me from that. Because if I've done wrong to another person, the correct course of action is to apologize and make amends to that person, and not blow it all off and hope that some God is going to just forgive me and make it all go away. That sort of mentality allows people to not treat people in a way that is good. If I believe I only have one shot at life and one chance, then I treat people better.
Is that what you believe?
Yes.
One shot?
Yes. When I'm dead, it's over. You think that if you don't believe in a God, you should just go ahead and do whatever you want?
Where do you get a moral compass from if you don't have a God?
Why do you think a moral code has to come from a God? And what makes it moral? If God says tomorrow that murder is correct, does that make it correct?
God's not going to say that.
How do you know?
How do you know?
Because I know the living God.
Oh, and you've judged him to be good, right?
He's a good God.
And you think he's good?
I know he's good.
Okay. What basis are you using to judge that he's good?
50 years of, half my life knowing him.
No. I'm not talking about experience.
I guarantee that God I know is a good God. And the last 25 years I've lived is a
what
testament
basis are you using to say that he's good?
He is a supernatural God, and I experience him in supernatural ways on a daily basis.
Well, so what about the Paraha, the tribe that has no God concept, who has no
but they didn't have numbers and any other things, but they didn't have any God concept. And when the missionaries went down there, they were baffled by this, that they had no appeal to super.
That's a great question, because if I ask people in this audience, you say you have no God concept either. Why did Christians send missionaries to them, though? You see, because if they did not know,
that this
hang
has
on,
anything to,
if
no,
they
no,
didn't
it's
know,
my time for questions.
Okay.
And if you get derailed, I want to know, what about the Paraha?
What about them? They know that God exists.
Even though they have no concept, no language, no nothing.
I deny
and
that.
when presented with the concept.
I deny that. That's why we send missionaries, because if they didn't know that God exists, sending missionaries would be the worst thing we could do.
So
we send missionaries.
You deny what the sociologists who went down there, who studied them and reported back, have to say.
Exactly.
Okay, fine. So if I have a rock that is from the right angle, looks like a person's face or profile, and one that, and another one that looks like somebody's profile, how do I tell which one's a sculpture and which one is just natural?
Use your brain.
Well, use your brain is not a particularly robust response to that, because use your brain how?
It's called common sense, Matt.
No, it's not called common sense.
Okay.
That is, science is not common sense, and investigation is not common sense. This is the thing. If you can't just go use your common sense needs to be trained, and it needs to be trained by good information, good models, good evidence, good heuristics. It's not just something that happens. That's what's wrong, is that your common sense has been mistrained. And it begins by assuming that there must be a God, therefore that God is judge, and you are going to be guilty under that God.
I never assumed anything.
Really?
You are convinced that God is the best explanation for the parting of the Red Sea.
Yes.
What if it turns out the Red Sea didn't even part?
Well, then there wouldn't be an explanation necessary if it didn't occur.
Okay, so then you'd be wrong on both counts.
Yes.
What if it turns out that the description of it was exaggerated, and it was that there was a natural explanation or some other explanation that you're unaware of?
And how are you going to verify that historically?
How did you determine that God is the most probable explanation for this thing which may or may not have happened?
Because if it's a miracle, it's recorded in the Bible, which I have no reason to doubt, then I can believe that it occurred. I do believe that it occurred, then it fits a definition of miracle. It's within my worldview, it's fine.
How did you determine that it's a miracle? I mean, isn't that question back?
Because it's the parting of the Red Sea is a pretty good miracle. Don't you think that would be a miracle? Look, you and I are on a ocean liner, and we're arguing about this, and we see the ocean just part down to the. Would you say, I've seen that before 50 times?
No, but the fact that I haven't seen something. So what I'm saying is that a miracle is question begging, because you are already asserting by defining it as a miracle that the explanation must be God or supernatural.
There's just no way to ever show you or prove any evidence for God's existence, even the parting of the Red Sea, even the resurrection of Jesus.
Now, do you like to hear yourself talk?
I do.
Nobody can really demonstrate anything to you because you like to argue, as most atheists seem to really like to argue.
No.
And I really...
Hang on. I will get back to you, and you can talk, I swear. There's one thing you've got to understand. All I'm asking is for you to demonstrate the truth of what you're saying. Not simply assert that it's true. Not claim that I don't understand because God hasn't given me a gift. Demonstrate the truth of what you're saying.
If there is a God, he hasn't done anything to make himself clear. And I don't understand why any God that would give somebody a rough feeling that maybe this passage might be relevant to their life wouldn't just say...
That's what faith is, right? That's what faith is. He's not...
Chris.
You live by faith. You don't live by evidence. That's what Christianity is all about, right?
We understand that much.
And that's why I reject it, because faith is not a reliable pathway to knowledge or understanding.
Okay, let me put it this way. You're assuming the future is going to be like the past.
Yes.
On what basis do you do that? On what basis do you do that?
Generally, okay, we live our lives by inference and induction. We are under the general assumption that the future is going to be pretty much like the past. Not exactly like the past, and that is because we have this trend of that always happening.
So the future will be like the past because the future's been like the past in the past.
Well, yes, as long as you're not claiming...
That's a logical fallacy.
No, it's not, because I'm not asserting that there is absolutely no difference in the future. I'm saying that my position is that I believe, and I believe that I am rationally justified in believing, that the future is going to be pretty much like the past.
So if I said to you, you've just proven I'm never going to die because I've never died in the past, would that not be a logical fallacy?
No, because we know that people die.
Yeah, but you know what? I'm a lot like those other people except for one thing. I've never died.
And that's true for everybody right up until the point they have.
So, therefore, that being the case, on what basis do you assume that the future will be like the past?
I assume that in the future you will die.
That's not my question. If I drive past 1,000 red houses,
okay,
and somebody asks me what color is the next house going to be,
okay,
how can you answer that question?
You don't know what the next house is going to be.
Okay, but that's exactly your argument when you say the future is going to be like the past because of the past.
No, it's not, because the question is different. If you were to say, based on...
Special pleading.
No. Based on... Go ahead, it's good, it's fair. Based on the houses that you've seen, what would you predict the next house is going to be? That's the world we live in, a world where we are making predictions based on probabilities from our experience of the past. We are not declaring that we have tuned into the absolute reality and have divine revelation that the next house is going to be red and that we can't be wrong about that.
But you make assumptions, I make assumptions, and if we have evidence and we have to make the least amount of assumptions to explain something, then no problem. The parting of the Red Sea, the parting of the Red Sea, for example, if I presuppose God did it, it works. Whether or not it's true is a different issue we can talk about, but it certainly works.
And if I presuppose that sea parting pixies did it, it works.
There you go. You like pixies, man. I'm going to send you a shirt with pixies on it because that's what you seem to like.